Yes, Nick the Cornu, you're one of the 4 St Helier parishioners who's called the meeting for the 29th. What's it all about?
Well, it's to discuss the Electoral Commission and to keep it independent. This is essentially a little bit of propaganda to hopefully persuade states members who will be taking the decision to reject the PPC proposition, which is currently before them, which is known as P5 2012, which doesn't in any way reflect the original wishes of the states in debate last year, where Deputy Daniel Wimberley's document, which was P12 2011, set out a much broader remit, and it envisaged that there wouldn't be any states members on that commission, which the current PPC one most certainly does, and that's wherein the danger lies.
Yes, the amendment which has now been brought, which is going to be voted on, as it was at St Clement, and the Harissier amendment was roundly supported at the similar St Clement meeting. Presumably that's exactly the same procedure we're going to follow in St Helier, is it?
We will indeed, and Deputy Harissier will come and speak, as he did in St Clement's, in support of his amendments. His amendments effectively restore the pristine purity, if you like, of the original P12 of 2011, what was originally debated, what was originally envisaged. And if states members support those amendments, then we'll be back to where we should be, I would argue, with an independent commission with hopefully independent individuals who don't have any fixed predisposed opinions and who will look at matters. Personally, I think that they can only ever come back to Clothier and to Carswell, because a bit like a compass, it always points north. However much you play around with magnets, it always comes back to north, and intellectually north is Carswell and the Clothier democratic elements, because this is what you're seeing from PPC is a rearguard action by the old guard, by the traditionalists, by conservatives, to prevent democratisation of Jersey. They've held it up for 10 years by not implementing the democratic elements in Clothier, and they want to hold it up for another 10 years or 20 years by having simply estates made up of constables, conservative, loyal to the traditional elite, and reducing the number of deputies. And who are they going to get rid of? Well, you can be sure it's town deputies, the ones who cause them trouble.
It is a bit ironic for those of us of a naive disposition that it is an ex-bailiff who's apparently leading this retranchement, going backwards thinking. Is that coincidental?
It is. Well, it's not terribly ironic. It's pretty obvious that a Crown officer, they represent the traditional oligarchic powers in the island, and historically the battle has always been between this small elite, which has been very reluctant to give up its power and authority, and still in charge, and is reluctant to make way for other social groups and have representation. Remember, we have 60% voter abstention in this island. That's the fundamental problem. The people are not engaged, not involved. Who's engaged? A small minority. And who controls them? An even smaller minority.
My naivety is partly about the fact that you don't expect a judge or an ex-judge to want to overthrow a recently arrived at democratic decision of the government. You'd think he'd be one who'd be supporting that, wouldn't you?
I think it's a high-risk strategy, because they are always going to have the reproach that by sitting on it, by controlling it, they were going to determine the outcome inevitably. They had it in their back pocket and just put it on the table. That's always going to be the reproach. That's why it's a high-risk strategy. And frankly, why couldn't they leave it to others? Because they're desperate about the issue of control. They feel weak, one would imagine. Why else would they do it? Why are they so fixated on control? Do they not believe that their views have any grip? No, probably not, because they actually understand intellectually that the Carswell and Clothier reforms, as proposed, are the only ones that can actually be implemented. Democratisation, engagement.
Looking over your shoulder, as always, is Emil Collins, the late Emil Collins. What do you think he'd have to say about this?
Oh, he'd be there. He'd be there on Wednesday, and he'd be making his usual comments. I'm sure he'd speak, and he'd be voting for the proposition most definitely.
So we need plenty more with the spirit of Emil Collins on Wednesday.
Oh, certainly, and there's still ones around who remember Emil, and they'll be carrying on his spirit into this parish assembly and rejuvenating parish democracy. And hopefully we'll get a good turnout, quite a number of deputies, and it's a bit of pressure. It's useful for politicians to be under pressure from the people and to be held accountable, and that's what it is. It's good.
We shall speak to you again.
Thank you very much.